Scott, guess what?
What?
It's time for everyone's favorite topic.
Chocolate.
No!
Sorry.
Zombies.
Chocolate-covered zombies?
Not yet. But maybe you could start a trend. Hello everyone and welcome back to Married with Comics. I'm your host Laura and this is the best co-host, my husband Scott. So we of course have been doing our 31 comics of Halloween and we have already covered vampires, demons,
Oh yeah.
ghosts,
Ooh.
and now it's time for zombies. So just a quick reminder, please make sure to subscribe to this channel. We are growing and we have set the ultimate challenge, which is if we hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of this month, on October 29th, when we have our live show with the Kraken's Horde, we will give away a slab to people who are commenting and subscribed to this channel. And right now, 50% of people watching these videos are not subscribed to the channel. So, seriously, help us out.
Little button right at the top. Just click it. You could win really cool stuff.
I'll make it worth your while. Some of you have noticed in our vampires video that my husband, who is a fan, did not mention Vampirella. How on earth did that happen?
I don't know.
Because you're going to talk about her entirely.
Ah.
This is fun.
Well, part of the reason that we didn't mention Vampirella in the vampire special is because we had other books that we were reading that dealt with different vampires, and she was going to be featured very heavily in this episode dealing with zombies. If you're familiar at all with the title Dienamite, spelled like die, D-I-E, Namite. It's a really cool series. It's a 5-issue limited run they did. And the covers alone are worth it, in my opinion. I mean, hello? Redsonja is a zombie? Yeah.
Yeah.
Vampirella is a zombie? Yeah. So the idea behind it, as you've obviously figured out by now, is that there is a zombie plague, and it's attacking the Dienamite universe. And several of their main characters, including the superpowers, Redsonja, Vampirella, maybe a Dejah Thoris in there? Yeah. But anyhow, they all have to come together in one way or the other to combat or trace the source of this plague. It is fun. It is fast-paced. You never get to the end of the issue and think, why did I just read that? Or at least I didn't. And it continues to carry itself forward for, shocker, cliffhanger, the end of the Dienamite run, to be continued in Dienamite Lives, the second limited issue series. And it's a really cool twist they do at the end of it. I won't give it away, no spoiler alerts. But I will say that Vampirella is in this heavily. Redsonja is obviously the second most,
prominent.
Yeah, character. And oh, the fun they weave. That's all I'm going to say. Just those two characters alone. The others are good, but those two characters alone, very interesting.
So for people who have not read a ton of Redsonja, Vampirella, other titles, do you recommend this one as kind of like a cool standalone series, or do you really need to know these characters?
2 reasons. Number one, it's a self-contained story, so even if you don't know anything, they give you enough background on the characters as they're being kind of woven into the story that you can get what's going on with them and their interactions. And then number 2, it really is, it kind of puts you in the mood for a Halloween. It's one of those stories that, I mean, yes, it's zombies, and zombies can be any time of year, but it just is presented in a way where you honestly feel like it's almost like watching your favorite old scary movie, in my opinion.
Okay.
So if you like the characters or know the characters at all, it's like, oh, cool, they did it, zombie edition. If you don't know anything about them, you could jump in here and still get something out of it.
Very cool. So my title for this month, because you can't talk about zombies without talking about The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Okay, so I managed to grab the compendium, and you can see I made it kind of halfway through. I purposefully had to stop myself from reading more, because otherwise all we would be talking about this month is The Walking Dead and Outcast. Robert Kirkman had me hooked that thoroughly.
Wow.
Little disclaimer for you. This was the same problem that Scott and I had with Game of Thrones, where we started the TV series and we couldn't get into it. So then I tried the book, and the book is so good that now I want to try the TV series again. We watched the first episode of The Walking Dead, and the characters were kind of annoying. Some of the decisions that they were making, we got a little frustrated. And there was so much emotion and so many things going on in that first episode.
It was a bit melodramatic for me.
And the thing is that the book is very melodramatic, but I don't mind it in the book. So now I want to go back to the TV series and see.
Watch it again.
So,
okay.
In a lot of ways, one of the things that Robert Kirkman does a fantastic job of, I've talked about it in Oblivion Song as well. So the big thing that I really enjoyed with the Robert Kirkman series was that he takes people and he puts them in a really, really extreme situation, and then he puts people through so many different raw emotions that it makes sense. For instance, if someone, like a loved one, your spouse, becomes a zombie and becomes the undead, there's a half of you that says, this person is going to eat my face while I sleep. This is a huge danger. But then there's the other half of you that just says in the back of your head, what if there's a cure? Yeah. What if I could bring them back? And so I understand this absolute conflict. And then, of course, you've got people who have not been sleeping, because how the heck can you sleep when there's a zombie apocalypse going on? You have people who are certain that, the government's going to come in and rescue us anytime now. Everything's going to go back to normal. The world will be safe again. And then you also have people who are just, they're in absolute survival mode of everything must die, destroy it all, I'm out for myself. And so you have some of these really extreme responses to this situation, but then you also see some of the characters jump between the different emotions as we go through the story. So it's not that everyone, like 110%, always stays in survival mode. Like, a situation will happen and sometimes it will put them in a different camp and something else will happen, and you'll watch those extreme responses to all these different attacks. And it makes you really, you care about the characters, you care about watching those emotional journeys, and it
makes it all relatable.
Completely.
Okay. Yeah.
So I really, really enjoyed it, but it made it really difficult to put down the series. You may want to start with something this size because you're going to need all those volumes to fly through this series.
You won't want to stop and wait.
Definitely will not want to stop and wait.
So, on that note, one that I could have waited a lot longer before reading, apparently, Robert Kirkman also did something a while back, Marvel's Zombies.
And with the What If series that just came out, that one episode, shouldn't this be fantastic?
So here's the full disclaimer on this. I did not read any preemptive stuff to this. I didn't read any offshoots, if there are any, to this. I only read standalone Marvel Zombies. It's a trade, as you can tell. Based on just this, I would definitely pass. Meaning, it starts off with a very kind of generic, short description of how this plague, or whatever it is, started. There was a flash in the sky, and then all this stuff happens, and now there are zombies. And then it turned into like a kind of a melee where you have the Marvel heroes who are zombies. But like, I didn't care. It didn't really explain how and why. And even later on when it did, I was like, okay. But it most certainly left me wanting them to give me either more plot development. The few twists that were in there, I was not overly impressed with. It was almost as if they just kind of said, hey, everybody's a zombie and go. And I thought, like, if it was me, I would have wanted to do more, I don't know, not even just a backstory, but intermingling. Because at one point you have one of the former superheroes who's now a zombie trying to figure out a cure. And the idea is that when they eat, they are able to still have higher cognitive functions.
Yeah.
But when they start getting really hungry, they go off full on Romero zombie mode, thoughtless. For example, when he eats, Bruce Banner is Bruce Banner, scientist. When he starts getting hungry, he becomes Hulk. Okay? But this one particular character was trying to, quote, solve this problem. And in doing so, he was keeping somebody else captive to eat little bits at a time in order to maintain his higher functioning thought processes so he could figure out the cure. And it left me scratching my head more than anything. And at the same time, I was like, I really didn't care. I couldn't care less about who got free, who lived, who didn't live. The one cool thing in it was there was one main character who's kind of a bad guy that we thought at one point was the last remaining human on Earth. And I'm like, oh, cool. Neat chance to pull for somebody you normally root against.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, he dies. I'm like, well, now what? So I spent the rest of the pages trying to figure out if there was anything else in there that I was interested in, and there really wasn't. It got to the end of it, and I still was like, I could see where they were trying to kind of leave threads so they could tie it into something later. And again, disclaimer, maybe they did, and maybe it got better, but just at the end of this, I was seriously sitting here looking at Laura like, I wish I could have that time back because it was not worth reading, in my opinion.
So in absolute contrast to that, DC did their own zombie series, and they called it DCeased. Before Stray Dogs started their horror homage covers, DCeased had theirs, and this is definitely one of my absolute favorites. And that is the other one that we have. Love these, and yeah, I'm gonna start swapping some of these out for these beauties. Now, in this series, technically, it's not a zombie apocalypse. It is an anti-life virus. However, Oliver, who is Green Arrow, says if it walks like a zombie, it talks like a zombie, and it eats like a zombie, it's a zombie. Completely agree with him on that one. So we do have a situation where if you are, scratched, then you become infected. So you do have a lot of our famous superheroes, of course, that fight in close combat. So if you can shoot an arrow and not, touch your victim or the zombie, the anti-life, person, then you're safe. But of course, they don't find this out until it's too late. And there is no cure, of course, just as we know with other zombie stories. But what I found really, really interesting, because we've seen this in a lot of different, whether it's Justice League stories or other Batman titles, we all know that Batman, as the world's greatest detective, has always kept that kind of Armageddon safe, where he has a backup plan for what happens if Wonder Woman goes crazy and Superman is set loose. But his backup plan also didn't involve so many superheroes being taken out at one time. So now we're trying to kind of piece together what would Bruce Wayne do, and, how do you face all these different, zombies at the same time? And then, of course, there's this overall plot as to why we have this anti-life, virus that is attacking the world. The cool thing I will say, so this is a 6-issue series, and by the end of issue 6, it sets up perfectly the next storyline within the DCeased series. So there is DCeased, I think it's Unkillables, I think their Dead Planet, I know, is another one. I want to say there are 4. But needless to say, as soon as I finished this one, I was ready for the next series. So we will definitely be grabbing those. So if you didn't care for Marvel Zombies as much, I definitely recommend DCeased. This was just a really fun zombie title, and again, you don't need to really know anything about the Justice League or the different characters to then understand that there's a zombie problem going on in the DC universe. So this was definitely worth grabbing. Do you have any zombie titles that you enjoy that we have not mentioned? Do we have any that we have mentioned that are your favorites? There's iZombie. There are a couple others I'm sure that we are not thinking of.
Oh, yeah.
There's, other offshoots of Marvel Zombies I know of, but maybe there's one of the other offshoots within Marvel Zombies that you all recommend. As always, subscribe, comment, like, share. We appreciate everything that you all are doing. This Thursday, we are going to be on BJ Kicks. Well, I'm going to be on BJ Kicks' channel on the Hangout talking about Philadelphia. And we will be seeing you all again very, very soon with our next topic, which will also be just as exciting. We will talk to you all again very, very soon. Have a great day, everyone.